Hey everybody, I hope you're having a wonderful Christmas. I personally just came home from having some nice Christmas lunch with my family, so yeah, feeling pretty good. I'm big and round right now, but I'm gonna make this video talking about the special weapons from the Dawning and Equilibrium and just Renegades in general and where I think they rank in the tier list. We're going to be going from Breech GLs all the way down to Traces, covering all, I think there's 7, right? Yeah, 7 different categories of special weapons. I'm also going to cover the hand cannon, the special hand cannon, the blaster. That's going to be in the other section, in the other tab in this video. But yeah, let's start with the normal special weapons. We're going to start with Breech GLs, aka special GLs first. And yeah, what do we have? So we have Gizmo Weft. That's going to be my highest ranked Breech GL for this season. That's because it's basically a better mounted top. The only thing it's missing is autoloading, but you could argue autoloading is not that important, especially after its nerf. People used to use autoloading on mounted top a lot because it would load in like 2.5, 2.7 seconds. However, these days after the autoloading nerf, it's definitely a noticeable amount of time. And a lot of the time when you're mounted top jumping, you have time to manually reload your weapon anyway. And Gizmo Weft provides you with bipod, which I believe, at least anecdotally, does less self-damage to you. It also has 2 in the mag no matter what, which is really, really nice. And then you can run air trigger, which means that when you're in the air and you're mounted topping yourself, you're going to have a huge reload buff, which air trigger gives to you. You also have slide shot if you're maybe not going in the air as much. That's kind of nice. And then for damage, this is also technically the best Breech GL we've ever gotten for swap DPS because it has envious aggregate honing. So that's also an option as well. Now, granted, I don't think, like I said in my archetype analysis video, that Spike GL impact-based damage is really relevant anymore, and it probably won't be for the foreseeable future. So Gizmo Weft is really just a movement tool, but even in that regard, it is significantly better than Mountain Top, and because of the other utility that it could potentially provide, I'm going to go ahead and place it into the S tier. I think that's totally valid. Next, we also have Motif. Some people have been talking about this. I've noticed some people have placed Heal Clip in the first column as a priority perk for them. In my opinion, Heal Clip, especially in endgame content, is something that needs to be attached to a weapon that you can consistently get instant kills on, and that's very snappy and responsive to feedback. Area denials are the opposite of that. In endgame content, even against red bars, you're going to be ticking them slowly, and if you miss time your manual reload, you will not be able to activate Heal Clip. So I don't think it's actually a great perk to have on this weapon. In exchange, I think autoloading holster is actually a much better perk. As you guys know, on Lost Signal, it feels really good. For the same reason, I think it feels really good on Motif. It also has Wellspring and Impulse Amplifier, which are potentially decent alternatives as well in the first column. You have Incandescent. I would have liked to see Burning Ambition on an area denial. I think that would have been funny. But besides that, Incandescent, Master of Arms, Attrition Orbs, just your classic area denial perks, nothing crazy, nothing too special like Baton has, and the Origin trait's not amazing, but I think autoloading plus it being solar is already like pretty decent, right? So we're going to go ahead and place that into the S tier. I believe it also gets Vorpal, if I'm not mistaken, so you can use it for damage as well, and it's not too bad in that regard. So yeah, that's it for Motif. Finally, we have Permafrost, which is the Dawning Waveframe that I'm sure you guys are getting hundreds and hundreds of drops from, and I am too. I've been throwing away all of them, but let's talk about if you wanted to keep one, what would you keep? So this thing is Rhyme Stealer and Crystalline Corpse Bloom, which is kind of like obvious synergy. Helps you keep up Frost Armor without having to be on stasis pretty easily. It has Demo Corpse Bloom as well, which is pretty chill, pretty simple. You have Reaper's Tithe, which in my opinion is one of the most underrated ad clear perks. A lot of people thought of it on the when and where as like a burst damage perk for like a rocket. But in my opinion, Reaper's Tithe is one of the best ad clear perks in the game when it comes to single target spree perks. However, it is a waveframe, and waveframes are not super relevant. If you got Reaper's Tithe on something like a Rocket Pulse or even something like a Rocket Sidearm, I think it would be a lot more successful. But regardless, Demo, Reaper's Tithe, Wellspring, Blast Distributor, just kind of like decent perks, but just on the wrong archetype and at the wrong time in the current game's meta. So Permafrost, it's like okay, but I don't think there's any real reason to like keep it unless you are really, really invested in trying to get like a Crystalline Corpse Bloom build going or something like that. So yeah, time has come, time has gone, Permafrost in the A tier. Okay, that's pretty much it for BGLs. Let's move on to fusion rifles. So fusion rifles, we have 3 of them to talk about. We have the refreshed Riptide, which in my opinion is actually better than Lionfish slightly, and that's mostly because of accelerated assault. Right now, accelerated assault, at least from what I know, it eats ammo in the middle of your burst, just like with rocket pulses, so it's a bit problematic. But once that's fixed, which I assume they will fix that because that seems like it's not intended, this thing will basically be able to shoot for very extended periods of time with controlled burst on top of getting that 6% additional damage from accelerated assault, which is a little nicer than Lionfish. Lionfish also has Problem Solver Exhaust, which is decent. It has Reconstruction, which is better than Autoloading and Overflow in my opinion, and then it has greater diversity in the second column. But I do think Accelerated Assault, just having that raw extra damage increase, is what you're probably going to value for most gameplay moments instead of what Lionfish has to offer, but they're both pretty close. They're essentially interchangeable, which is why they're both rank 1 and 2. Mana D44, in my opinion, is probably the best like Withering Gaze fusion rifle that you can have right now. I think like Attrition, Withering Gaze, correct me if I'm wrong, but Attrition Orbs I believe procs fairly quickly on fusion rifles. So if you want like a Withering Gaze fusion, which I think fusions are one of the most underrated Withering Gaze archetypes in the game, you could try using this. Honestly, I probably placed this a little high now that I'm looking at the rest of the list. Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, I do want to place this like a little bit lower because you have stuff like Glacioclasm, which can be used for damage and for Withering Gaze as well. So yeah, I'm going to go and place Mana D probably somewhere around like right here because it is a decent Discord fusion as well with destabilizing. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and place it right over here. I don't think it's as high as I once put it. Yeah, I'm just going to put it like right there. It's still in the A tier, but I'm going to put it a little bit lower because I don't think it really makes sense to put it over stuff like Glacio and Finite and Techian. That was a mistake by me. So I'm going to place it a little bit lower. But yeah, Mana D, probably the, again, best Discord fusion in the game because of one-shot kill potential in Underlight content, and then also has the Withering swap option as well. So yeah, so that's Mana D. And then finally, I think we have Nox Sidearms IV. Yeah, hopefully I'm saying that correctly. This does get access to Accelerated Assault, which is a bit of a redeeming factor when the first column looks like this. But unfortunately, still, it's not that great. You have Reservoir Burst with Clown Cartridge, which is not like a really big overflow perk like Overflow or Reconstruction. You have Discord in the second column, which, you know, you much prefer it in the first column. And you have like Crystalline Corpse Bloom, which like Discord and Crystalline maybe could have been decent, but like, you know, not particularly appealing here compared to some of the stuff in B and A tier. So yeah, I just went ahead and put in the C tier, outdated damage perks, and mediocre roam combos. All right, next up we have Glaives. So we only have one Glaive this season. This is actually going to come out next act, I think. So this is not even available right now, but it's the Heron. The Heron, best archetype in the game, aggressive, decent stats, right? Not too bad. And then you have some pretty interesting like utility, shield break related, tech sec related perks. First of all, you have your classic repulsor destabilizing, which is fine, whatever. You have disruption break and ancillary ordnance, which is kind of interesting. You have lead from gold redirection. So super interesting, super like utility focused glaive perks that you don't typically see on most glaives, and they have nail meat hammer as well. So if you wanted a glaive melee build that uses synthos or something like that, and you wanted to pair with like tech sec 4-piece, I think this is the perfect glaive for something like that. However, you know, it's still like kind of niche, I suppose, in some regards, but you know, just as a raw glaive, even if you look at some of the other perks that this thing gets, I think it's totally usable, totally fine. So I went ahead and put it into the S tier. I might move it a little bit down in the future, maybe like below Nezaric's Whisper and stuff like that, but I think it's still pretty decent. So the Heron, shout out to the Heron, we're going to put in S tier. We're going to move on to the shotgun tier list. Okay, the shotgun tier list, we actually have one new shotgun this season, and that's Hawthorne's Field Forge shotgun. This is another chill clip shotgun, and unfortunately, while chill clip shotguns are nice, they are hit scan options for chill clip, and they freeze pretty quickly. I don't think this shotgun is particularly amazing. Lightweights don't have a lot of total damage, which means you're not going to be able to, or total shots, I should say, which means you're not going to be able to proc chill clip as many times as you might want to on something like a Tinashe. And then the other perks on this thing, they're like, okay, you know, it's high quality of life, but like very, very niche. And this thing has basically no other PvE utility, where something like Trakinus, at least you can maybe argue that you could maybe use it for damage, right? So not particularly amazing here, not very impressed with Hawthorne. Just going to place it in C tier, not super impressive. Next up, we have Snipers. Snipers, you can see here, Conspiracy Honed is now in the S tier. I did place it slightly below Praedyth because Praedyth does have more total damage, technically speaking, has much more useful use cases with like kinetic tremors outside of damage. And, you know, Praedyth's Revenge obviously synergizes well with like 4 times a charm. It solo is able to build Transcendence, unlike Conspiracy Honed, because Conspiracy Honed is stasis. So Praedyth's Revenge, you know, in a more equalized sandbox, is the better weapon compared to Conspiracy Honed, is more versatile. But obviously Conspiracy Honed is a raw damage specialist, and we're definitely going to see people look into that more and more as we delve deeper into the season, as there's less and less kind of things to do. People are definitely going to test more damage stuff with Conspiracy Honed. And so yeah, I've placed it into the S tier, pretty solid stuff there. And then something, I moved it up a little bit since I initially added it to this list when I was doing my early in the season listings, and that's because it has Accelerated Assault. And so aggressive frame snipers have a big problem, and that is that without Reconstruction, they don't fire in their mag for very long compared to Rapids, right? Rapids, for example, even Conspiracy Honed, which is dynamic and has, you know, a heat limitation, when you activate DHL, you can shoot like 10 or 11 shots in a row. Something, you can't say the same thing, but with Accelerated Assault, you maybe can. So triple tap and honing could actually be a potential option, especially with the new gear bonus this season, and of course the you know, kinetic synthesis and stuff like that. But even ignoring those factors, triple tap and Accelerated Assault alone should be able to pair for enough to extend your mag size by a fair amount, on top of adding that damage boost to pretty much all of your bullets, right? So for that reason, I decided to put something pretty high up in the A tier. It's, I think, in my opinion, better than Critical Anomaly and stuff like Succession, because of Accelerated Assault on top of the okay, pretty solid perks that it has. Kinetic plus Elemental Honing is always a treat for damage. Okay, so that's snipers. Let's go ahead and move on to rocket sidearms. Rocket sidearms, we don't actually have any new rocket sidearms, so Return Memory and Unfall, despite being Season 27 weapons, are highlighted because the syntax highlights the formula highlights the max season. So yeah, that's rocket sidearms, nothing changed. Okay, let's move on to traces. Traces, we have one new trace this season. It's called Action Item. This one seems to be kind of like the Heron, where it's very about, you know, utility, very about breaking shields, destroying vehicles, making crystals, stuff like that, right? So Action Item, you can see here, it has Deconstruct, it has Rhyme Stealer, it has Crystalline Corpse Bloom, it has Nail Meat Hammer. So all of these are kind of structure-based, object-based, destruction-based, right? So pretty thematic trace, I guess, if you're making like a crystal build or something like that. This might play into that to some degree, because as you know, or you may not know, Nail Meat Hammer makes your weapon more effective against shields. So it's probably the best stasis synergy trace. Like if you wanted a legendary trace to use with like some sort of like Rhyme Coat build or some sort of Howl the Storm build for some reason, this would probably be the one that you want. But yeah, it's just kind of a trace. It doesn't have shoot to loot. I think because it's packed with so many of these perks, and I think Crystalline is like pretty decent on a trace in my opinion. I decided to place it bottom of A tier. I think it is a step up above some of the stuff down here. But you know, not a huge difference, right? And I don't think personally, you know, you're going to be using this trace a ton. If you're just, you know, playing general endgame content. Yeah, so that's it for traces. Not much to talk about there. Could easily be top of B tier, you know, splitting hairs at this point. And then we're going to go to the other tab and talk about 2 of the special weapons this season. We'll talk about the heavies in the next video. We're going to talk about Uncivil Discourse and Psi Aeterna IV. So Uncivil Discourse, I think everyone knows at this point, you want Air Trigger and Precision Instrument. You could go Cooling Baubles as well, but that's kind of niche. Air Trigger, Precision Instrument is enough. You want Ionized Mag. I actually might add mag stuff to some of these weapons now because people are asking about it and it's not in the sheet. But for heat weapons, generally speaking, especially for damage-based weapons, you want the ionized heatsink. You want the ionized heatsink. It's very, very important. Most important thing to get in terms of mag, masterwork, all that stuff. Masterwork cooling efficiency is nice, but like not super needed. And then handling for your barrel is nice as well. Yeah, best in slot for Lucky Pants, probably going to catch a nerf, but even after nerf, it's probably still going to be usable. Obviously, you want Accelerated Assault, super great. And then you have Psi Aeterna IV, which the only competitor is Mint Retrograde, and they're in different slots, so they barely compete. But you have Trickle Charge, you have Blast Distributor, which can give you up to 65 grenade when enhanced, which is pretty nice. You have Elemental Honing, Accelerated Assault. Once they fix Accelerated Assault, you probably won't even need Trickle Charge. So yeah, that's pretty nice as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. I just talked about pretty much all the new special weapons in the game. Some of you guys were pointing out that some of the primaries that I had in the last video did not mention Accelerated Assault as one of their origin traits. I went ahead and I've gone and fixed those. So let me know if there's any problems. As usual, you guys know this is a evolving document. This is an evolving document, and I want to evolve it alongside the community. So if you have any feedback, any questions, concerns, corrections for the spreadsheet, leave them in the comment. I read every single YouTube comment. I catch up with it like literally all the time. So please let me know and I'll read your comment. And if it's valid, then I'll certainly change things if there needs to be corrections. Okay, that's it for now. You guys have a wonderful Christmas, have wonderful holidays. And tomorrow we'll do a power tier list. And then after that, I'm going on a trip with some friends. And on the trip, I'll make some videos. We're going to have a year-end speedrunning in review video as usual. And then in the new year, we'll work on some other projects. So I'll see you guys then, and goodbye for now.